Hey there, all you true crime fans. I'm Amanda,
And I'm Corey.
and this is Colorado Crime. If you're new here, we cover cases from coast to coast with a special emphasis on cases that happen right here in colorful, crime-filled Colorado. If you're returning, thanks for being here. So, we're trying something new today. Corey has jokes.
Hey, how do you organize a space party?
How?
You plan it.
Okay, next week we need the chicken joke.
Okay, I could do that.
Emerson's been telling my dad and everybody the chicken joke. So
It's funny. It's funny. It's a
she
funny
likes
joke.
it. I
Yeah.
know.
It's funny.
All right, guys. Well, did you guys know that February 3rd is National Missing Person Day? This was set up on May 25th, 1983, in order to draw attention to missing persons cases around the U.S. And the U.S. Congress created the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children first, which is a nonprofit organization that works to find and reunite missing children with their families. Then, in 1996, the Amber Alert program was created after the kidnapping and murder of Amber Hagman in Arlington, Texas, which is such a sad case in and of itself. She was a 9-year-old little girl who was out riding her bicycle with her little brother when she was taken. 4 days later, her body was found naked and covered in bruises, and her throat had been slit. Unfortunately, no one has been held accountable for her murder, and it remains unsolved to this day. But before her death, there wasn't really a system in place to alert the public if a child was missing. So in 2000, the program went nationwide, and now alerts go out immediately. I'm sure you guys have all received the alert on your cell phones before. As always, there has been some controversy as not every missing child case meets the specific criteria for an alert to be released, but overall, I think the idea behind the program is really great. And then also in 1996, President I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Clinton, established the International Commission for Missing Persons. This is an intergovernmental organization that assists people who have gone missing because of war or human rights issues or natural disasters. And then lastly, NamUs was started in 2003, and NamUs is a national information clearinghouse and resource center for missing, identified, and unclaimed person cases across the U.S. Its resources are provided at no cost to law enforcement, medical examiners, coroners, allied forensic professionals, and family members of the missing person. According to the NamUs website, there are currently 22,688 open missing person cases and 32,361 resolved cases. There's 14,366 open unidentified person cases and 6,059 resolved cases. And there's 15,256 open unclaimed person cases, and 1,590 of those have been resolved. So, a couple little trivia facts. Did you guys know that Alaska actually has the highest rate of missing person cases in the U.S.? 1 out of every 617 people in the state is missing.
I mean, in Alaska, I think that's pretty strange. There's only probably 617 people in the whole state, so that's weird.
That's what I thought too. I thought it was a pretty high number for Alaska. And then 89 to 92% of reported missing persons are found every year, and a person must be missing for 7 years before they can be declared legally dead.
Do you think that's why Carol Baskin's husband mysteriously came back to life after the 7 years because he's already been dead?
Maybe. Carol was like, "You're coming back because everyone thinks I'm a murderer."
I mean, allegedly.
Allegedly, right. 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 Okay, so how can you guys help observe National Missing Persons Day? So you can share info about missing people. With social media as accessible as it really is a great way to spread information and to get people talking and thinking. You can always donate to a charity. So the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is always in need of support. So anything you can spare would be greatly appreciated. And the last way would be by volunteering with search and rescue teams. And this one isn't as accessible for everyone. I mean, thankfully, because not every city has a search party on the daily. When they do, though, it would be a great way to help. And then I also have 3 sort of scary facts for you, and then we'll move on. So, my first one. White female abductions get the most coverage. Missing white women receive more media coverage than white males and children, and significantly more than the abduction of people of color. My second one is missing people need to be reported immediately. So there's this big, huge misconception that a person has to be missing for 24 hours before they can be reported, but that's not true. Police are encouraging everyone to report a missing person as soon as possible.
So I think the other thing is that people get a lot of their information from TV. So when it comes to 24 hours, they hear that on TV, and that's why they don't report people for 24 hours, because they've seen that on a TV show and they think that that's how real life is.
And I think probably in the 70s, 80s, and maybe even early 90s, that kind of was the standard. I mean, the
Mhm.
police wouldn't even, take a report if you weren't missing for longer than 24 hours. But that's not the case. Not anymore. If someone's missing, make a report ASAP. Because the sooner you have people out looking, the sooner that person can be reunited with their family. And lastly, so there is a special foundation solely for missing Black people. HBO did a series called Black and Missing, and then they created a site for people to report their missing loved ones, which makes me so sad that people of color don't receive the same coverage and that they need their own site. And I mean, I've never seen this show because my husband's cheap and we don't pay for streaming. Thanks, Corey. But if I did have HBO, I would totally watch this one. It seems really interesting. So check it out on HBO, guys, if you have it. It's called Black and Missing.
I have HBO if you want to borrow it.
Stop listening to us, government. We're not sharing passwords. Just saw a thing online today that said Netflix is cracking down on password sharing. You have to sign in from your home Wi-Fi every 30 days now. So I was like,
Shoot,
what?
they make you do that anyways. Every time I get on my TV, it's like, you're signed out of Netflix. Like, what? So
Hey, that's not me. I don't have your Netflix password.
So if I sign out of Netflix, all you Netflix users that use my password, I'll just sign back in and you should be fine.
Yay!
Yay!
Oh, that's funny. Well, do you have anything that you want to add on the National Missing Person Day?
Nope, I don't think so. Thank you for asking me.
All right. Well, if you guys want to donate to NCMEC, please do so. But let's talk real quick about some other ongoings in the true crime community, which I feel like we could totally do weekly episodes on the current
Okay.
happenings in the true crime community because holy cannoli.
Mhm.
But news that I am super excited for is that on January 26th of this year, it was announced that the Ellen Greenberg case will be reopened. Ellen Greenberg was a teacher who died in 2011 after being stabbed 20 times. 10 of those were in her back, and she was at her apartment while her boyfriend was supposedly at the gym. Her death was ruled a suicide, and the case was closed. So the case occurred in Philadelphia, but if you guys would like us to cover this case, let us know. I feel like it was crazy that it was even ruled a suicide. I mean, that's a whole thing.
She was stabbed in the back. I've seen a lot of murders and suicides, but I have never seen a suicide person try to stab themselves in the back first before they kill themselves. That's weird.
Right. Especially for a woman. On top of that, I mean,
Mhm.
women
Mhm.
more are more likely to overdose or, not really leave something messy. And stabbing is so messy.
Mhm. Stabbing is a crime of passion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And slippery and dirty and
Uh-huh.
yeah. Also, Anne Walsh, the missing mother of two from Cohasset, Massachusetts, her husband has actually been charged with her murder. So the prosecution believes that he dismembered Anna and then discarded of her body. Her body has not been found, and her husband, Brian, has pleaded not guilty. But there's been like some search history brought up, and it was like how to dismember a body, how to dispose of a body, will blah, 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 get rid of evidence, things like that. And lastly, the Alex Murdaugh trial has begun. So, if you guys aren't familiar, he was a prominent attorney in South Carolina before he was accused of killing his wife and son at their hunting estate in 2021. Alex does claim that he's innocent, so we'll see what happens at trial. We can keep you guys updated if you're interested. That one I haven't actually followed. But yeah, I'd be happy to look into it if that's something you guys wanted to know about. Corey, do you have any updates for us that you want to add?
I would like to add that the Alex Murdaugh case is very interesting. He's got a whole lot of stuff going on. Like, he was pulled over. He's like a whole thing. And I have to say that Ann Walsh, her husband, that guy is an idiot. Like, why would you search how to murder somebody on your computer?
Right?
I don't understand that. I think it's weird. Like, if you're gonna search that, maybe you do it on a public computer, like the library or something like that. Go to the library. Like, don't search it on your home computer or your son's computer, because that's where he really searched it, was his son's iPad.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's sad.
Yeah. I would like to congratulate Annie Spalding on winning the Dutch Brothers gift card. We appreciate all your guys' suggestions. You sent in quite a few that we had not heard of. So we're looking forward to covering these cases. They were all super interesting. If this is something you guys enjoy, we can definitely do more giveaways. We have some ideas of some other giveaways and stuff like that. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I did too. So, moving on from that, but you closed on your new house. So, give us some details. But don't tell us where you live because we don't want to stalk you.
Oh, well, I mean, you guys can stalk me. I don't have a job right now except for this podcast. So I'm home all day. So I'll know if you're stalking me. I mean,
Freeloader.
feel free. Yeah, feel free. We moved to Illinois on Saturday of this week. It was a super long ass drive with my 3 dogs in the car. It was 16 hours. We left at 10. We hit a snowstorm in Iowa and it was horrible. My new house is pretty good. The old homeowners are kind of terrible. But that's a story for another day. But I'm currently doing this podcast in my car because if you can imagine, we've had the house cleaners here for 2 days. That's how dirty it was on the inside. Like, I'm going to give you a little tidbit. If you're moving out or moving into a house, please have it professionally cleaned by someone. When I moved out of my house in Colorado, I paid somebody to come and clean it. Shout out to Country Clean. They're a good cleaning company located in Kersey. And we
Do they
came
just
here.
do move out cleans or do they do like
She
come
does
in?
all cleans. She has a Facebook and everything. That's where I found her on.
Oh, well, we will
Yeah.
share her info. If anybody's interested, reach out. But maybe we will share her info on our Facebook page.
Perfect.
Cool.
But yeah, so it's a big house. It's a lot bigger than what we were wanting to buy here, but we have plenty of room for activities.
We're getting bunk beds.
Bunk beds for everyone. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So we got all our mover stuff. Our poor mover guy, his truck broke down, so that was a whole thing. It's just been a nonstop folly of bad experiences this week. Pretty much.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. But we got new bedroom furniture and that'll be here tomorrow. And hopefully my internet comes tomorrow because otherwise I'm piggybacking off my phone.
I can't believe your furniture is going to come tomorrow. That's crazy. You were just there yesterday.
I know. I know. I'm pretty excited about that. But,
Heck yeah.
Illinois is a big state, so
Yeah, what's your weather like? It's
the
shitty and
same.
cold here.
It is, let me see what the temperature is. 33 here right now. A little bit breezy, but not too terrible. Yeah. So, there you go.
It's 37 here, and we still have
Oh.
snow on the ground.
We
Is there
still have
snow?
snow. Yeah, we still have snow here too, but I think we have like maybe 3 inches and that's it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. They said
I've
this
been
has
trying
been
to.
one of their mildest winters, so
Oh, that's funny. I feel like
yeah.
our winter this year has been like pretty substantial. I feel like it's been really cold, and I feel like we got a lot of snow in
I
Colorado.
think I think so too. I mean, we had a lot of snow before I left, so I'm sure you guys, I know we hit the tail end of that snowstorm that was coming to y'all, so I'm pretty sure you guys got a fair amount.
Oh, yeah, that one was weird. The most recent one, we didn't get much. It
It
was
was
kind
it
of
just
like a
windy?
dusting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that Arctic chill or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, Chris was able to, like, leaf blow it
Oh,
because
that's
it was just
nice.
yeah, it was so light. It was just like, "Woof," which was nice. It was just cold.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm excited, and I'm glad that you made it there safely.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't
So,
have any bad luck barring that, so it's just been the folly of bad experiences this week so far, but, whatever.
hey, it's Thursday. It's almost over.
Yeah, right?
I know it's February. Happy February,
Yeah,
everybody. I can't
yeah,
believe
yeah.
that. We survived the year of January. That's cool.
Right, now we'll have the year of February.
Oh god, but don't worry. That means that March is coming, and that means it's gonna be warm, and we can go outside, and my dogs will stop being so bored.
I know, mine are bored too.
Well, I took my son on a field trip on Monday, and we go to sit down, and this little boy I sit down, and I'm getting Lincoln his food, and this little boy looks at me, and he goes, "You sound like a child." And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm not. I'm his mom." And he goes, "Oh, well, you sound like a child." And I was like, "Oh my gosh."
Kids are so rude.
I know, and I was like, "Okay." And then we're working on kind of a really cool interview for you guys, and my dad's helping to orchestrate it, and so he's talking to this person, and he's like, "Well, my daughter, blah, 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 she kinda sounds like Minnie Mouse." And then when I worked at the jail, I'm sure you remember this because they called you, a courts lady called, and she was like, "Hi, I don't remember who I talked to, it was a girl, and she sounded like a cartoon mouse." So I'm, like, totally going through an identity crisis right now. So if you guys don't like listening to me because I sound so squeaky, I'm really sorry, but it's not gonna change because this is my voice. Apparently, I sound like a child. Kids are mean. I text Chris and I was like, "I'm being bullied by a 7-year-old." I know.
Kids are mean,
I know. I don't even know
and
who I am anymore.
they're not necessarily mean, they just truthful, so everything that comes out of their mouth is like, "Hey, you sound stupid." You're like,
I know.
"Oh, okay, cool."
Thanks. Yeah, they're just, like, so honest and so innocent, but I was like, "Ouch."
Your voice is stupid.
Yeah, you sound like a child. Wow. One time, my daughter told me that I had child hands. I had taken off my nails, like my fake nails, obviously, like, not my whole fingernail, but I'd taken them off, and Emerson was like, "You have child hands."
My coworker
Wow.
my coworker at work, her, well, when I don't work, let me remind you, I don't work. My coworker at my old job, um, I'm sure she'll appreciate me telling this story. So, we were, during COVID, it was pretty slow, so we were taking out a bunch of trash to these dumpsters that we had out there. And we were taking the carts out and we were throwing stuff into the dumpster and it was really super windy. And I looked over at her and I was like, "Hey, when did you put on those like white latex gloves to throw out this trash?" And she looks at me and she goes, "Corey, those are just my hands." I was
Oh
like,
my
I
god.
was like, "Oh." my bad. I'm like, you should get some sun.
Carry on.
Never mind.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Poor thing.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So, I mean, adults are mean too.
It might just be Corey's.
Okay.
Corey's are mean.
Corys are mean.
Oh,
Okay.
that's funny.
Let's get into it.
All right, party people. So let's dive into this week's case. I'm going to give you a rundown of the three main people that we're going to be discussing. And then Corey's going to kind of take the lead because she actually worked in Weld County when this case was happening. So today we are covering a case that earned Greeley a place on the murder map for sure. The sordid details seem almost made up. Illegitimate children, years-long affairs, a possible setup, a public execution, and it all revolved around a group of individuals who took an oath to protect and serve. This is the tragic story of the murder of Heather Garraus. Heather Garraus was a beautiful, vibrant, hardworking wife and mother. She loved her daughter Victoria and her husband Ignacio. Her family was everything to her. Heather was born February 8th, 1969 in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, and grew up in Boulder and then graduated from the University of Northern Colorado. She also attended St. Mary's Catholic Church in Greeley. On July 27th, 1991, she married the love of her life, Ignacio Garraus. Heather was the assistant bank manager at the Colorado State Employee Credit Union, where friends and coworkers all described her as wonderful, kind, welcoming, and extremely dedicated to her work and family. Ignacio, or Ig, as his friends called him, was a police officer at Greeley Police Department and had been employed there since 1991. He and Heather had been married for 15 years and shared a daughter together. From the outside, Ignacio had the perfect life. But once you started to look a little closer, the cracks became very clear. Ignacio had begun an affair with a 911 dispatcher. The two carried on their illicit affair for 3 years and even produced a child, a son named Christian. Now, this affair was not as hush-hush as everyone would assume. This affair was well known by coworkers and friends. The hatred Ignacio's mistress felt for his wife was no secret either. It was a well-known fact, one his mistress talked constantly about, that she hated Heather. She saw Heather as the only thing standing in the way of their happily ever after. Who is this mistress, do you ask? Shauna Louise Nelson. So, Shauna was born October 1st, 1971. She lived her entire life in Greeley, Colorado. In 1992, she took a job as a 911 dispatcher for Greeley Police Department. At the time, she was married to Chris McKay until 1995, when she began to suspect he was having an affair with a coworker of hers. After her divorce was finalized, she went on to marry Ken Nelson, a Weld County Sheriff's deputy, in 1996. The couple had 2 sons together, Dylan and Jordan. She claimed to have met Ignacio in 2004, but the two would have been working together for years at this point. The two began flirting, and in July, the relationship turned sexual. Shortly after, Shauna became pregnant with her and Ignacio's love child. Ignacio asked her to abort the pregnancy, and she did. A decision she says still haunts her. So, maybe I'm crazy, but this was totally a conversation that my husband and I had when we first started dating. I wanted him to know my opinion, and I wanted to know his opinion because I know the story. Everybody else knows, when a mommy and a daddy love each other very much, blah, blah, blah. But really, as an adult, they should have known how conception works.
I mean, yeah, they sell condoms at the grocery store. Birth control is readily available. Like, you're an adult person. You know how a baby's made. Um, pretty sure she was doing it to try and trap him in the first place, but it didn't work out so well for her. So, I mean, whatever. So, while all this was happening, Shauna was confiding in her good friend Michelle. Michelle Moore worked as a Weld County Sheriff's deputy with Ken. Shauna and Michelle became close. Shauna told Michelle about how much she hated Heather. Heather had Ignacio, and Ignacio wouldn't leave her. Ignacio wouldn't leave Heather, but that didn't stop Ken from leaving Shauna. He discovered her diary chock full of details surrounding her affair with Ignacio. The two separated. Shauna's hatred for Heather grew daily. Another friend and coworker of Shauna's, Jennifer Morrison, went to a shooting range with Shauna. Shauna told Jennifer that she was pretending Heather was the target. That's pretty jacked up. Why didn't Jennifer report this? Because Shauna never explicitly said that she wanted to kill Heather. You'll notice this is a trend throughout this case. It wasn't just these two that Shauna confided in, though. As we mentioned earlier, Shauna talked openly about her hatred for Heather. Shauna's hatred for Heather was clear to everyone. She discussed it openly and daily. She reportedly called Heather a fat hag, disgusting, and controlling.
Heather was controlling? Her husband was having an affair. I think she handled it better than most would.
I agree. Ignacio said that the reason the affair began was basically Heather's fault. Sorry, what? In 2003, Heather's mom passed away from cancer. Her dad had previously passed away, and she became depressed. She began taking antidepressants and sleeping a lot. He felt lonely and neglected. That's a cop out. Like, deal with your problems. You're a grown up. The two stopped having sex, and he was mad. Shauna talked to him. She cared about him and his needs. She began telling him she loved him. She even got a tattoo of his name on her ankle. Can you imagine you come home? Yeah, can you imagine you come home and you're married to somebody and he's like, what does that tattoo say on your leg? Ignacio. Who's Ignacio? And she's like, oh, it's no one. He's like, Ignacio. Is that the guy that works for GPD?
Right. Like, they work together. It's not like, he didn't know him at all. They would have had run-ins together. They would have gone on calls together. Like, I mean, for God's sake, Greeley was going to Weld County Jail at the time. Like, I mean, your paths would cross for sure. And then, like, so Heather, her parents pass away, and, like, she's going through this just, like, devastating time in her life. I mean, I couldn't imagine. And now he's blaming her. And side note, who isn't or hasn't been on antidepressants these days? It drives me so crazy when people don't take accountability for their actions. And, like, so what if she was on antidepressants? Let her get better and then, like, fucking, I don't know, be there for your wife.
Right.
Be a good husband.
Be supportive. Like, you're a grown person. You're a grown man. Like, you can't base all your problems on, marriage takes work and it takes two people to make it work. So, you're 50% of the problem. So sorry.
Right. Well, and then you bring somebody else into that and then you take their percentage. So I'm sorry, but your 50% is now like 80%.
Correct. And Shauna was so obsessed with Ignacio. Like, I can't even imagine how like, she would call him all the time and like, call him from work. Like, she was like crazy about him. I don't know. Crazy.
I just don't know how you would hide a whole tattoo.
Right?
Like, no offense, Ken, but, like, are you neglecting your wife? Because how did you not notice she had a tattoo on her ankle?
Where did you get that from? Like,
like, oh, weird, huh?
Yeah. Who's that?
And I'm pretty sure it was, like, his whole name. It wasn't, like, a nickname or anything, which we will learn later that they did have, like, code words for each other, but, like, it was his freaking name on her ankle.
I really don't understand why they had code words for each other. Everyone knew they were having an affair. Just a little FYI and a tidbit. If you decide to work for a police agency or any job and you think you're having a secret affair, you are not. It's never a secret. Everyone always knows. Everyone just talks about it behind your back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like, I didn't date a single person I worked with. And it was like, oh, aren't you dating this person? Like, what? No.
Right.
So imagine, like, we weren't even dating and that went around. Imagine if you're having an affair.
Yeah.
Like, it's gossip. And now you're in, like, a confined area. And that just, like, that spreads like a wildfire.
Yep. And Ignacio supposedly wasn't her only affair. She acted this way with all the men and their spouses or partners until she moved on to her next obsession.
Gross.
Right. So, big surprise, Shauna got pregnant again because birth control was non-existent apparently.
It's like it was like the 1700s or something.
Right. Couldn't use
Guys,
it.
this is the 2000s, by the
Yeah.
way.
July 4th, 2005, she was like, "I'm keeping this baby." And Ignacio was like, I don't want a baby." And she's like, "I don't
Same.
care." Yeah, she's like, "I don't care. Um, I'm keeping it." So she was going to raise this baby and hopefully trap him into being with her.
What a
But
like total Madonna moment. Like,
right.
like, I'm
Right?
keeping my baby. She was too. She
Yeah.
did.
She did keep it. So the thought of being a single parent, I think, scared her a little bit. So she went back to Ken and she was honest with him. She told him that she was pregnant with Ignacio's baby. And Ken was like, "Okay, come back." And he decided that he was going to raise this baby as his own. Christian Nelson was born March of 2006. While she was in the hospital, Ken left briefly so Ignacio could meet his child.
What?
Yeah. Ken was listed as the father, but Ignacio would have visitation rights. I mean, you're like, "Hello, wife." Oh, soon to be ex-wife, we're separated. And she's like, "Hey, bro, I'm pregnant, but it's with the guy's baby I've been cheating on you with the entire time we've practically been married. So, you wanna get back together and raise this baby?" He's like, Yeah, I do. I would love to have another man's baby as my baby." Which, shout out to Ken for being a responsible parent
Hell
and
yeah.
stepping
Good
up to the
job,
plate.
Ken.
Right? Stepping up to the plate and, taking care of a baby, because it's not the baby's fault. Like, as much as we kid, like, it's not the baby's fault that he was born into a situation that was totally jacked up and, um, I mean, kids just need love and support. Like, it doesn't matter. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter whose DNA you have. It's about who's a good dad. Not a, you can anybody can be a father, but it takes a lot of people to be a dad. So
For sure. For sure.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
good for him.
when did our podcast just became like pro Ken? Good job, Ken.
Yeah.
We're proud
Good
of you.
job,
That's
Ken.
awesome.
Proud of you.
You're doing great, man. Your wife sucked, but you know what? You stepped up to the plate when you didn't have
Yeah.
to, and that's pretty
Right.
cool.
Yeah.
Because I'd be like, nah,
Right.
go
But
pound sand.
it's not the baby's fault. So I mean,
No.
whatever. So Shauna and Ignacio continued their affair. I know. You're all surprised. From March to December, that was after she had the baby, by the way, people, a baby he hardly saw. They continued their secret meetings, coded text messages. She was Omar in Ignacio's phone, by the way, and late
Like
night
what?
phone calls.
Omar? You
Omar,
couldn't come up with a better name than Omar?
right? Like Tom or
Right.
like Terry,
Right. You had to be
Steve.
Omar. Yeah. Or
I mean,
like,
maybe he didn't have other friends named Omar, so then he would know who he was texting. Because can you imagine if you had two friends named Tony and you accidentally text your naked picture to the wrong Tony?
my bad, Tony. That dick pic was not for you. That was for my other friend, Tony. Like, what? What you said? Which Tony? Now
Poor
that
Tony.
would have spread around way faster than any kind of affair rumor.
Right. Tony.
Poor
Uh,
Tony.
Poor Tony. Um, on December 16th, 2006, Ignacio called Shauna and ended things. She called and texted repeatedly. To say she was upset, it was an understatement. 2 days later, she showed up at Heather's place of employment to close her accounts. I'm doing air quotes. She was showing Heather how easy it was for Shauna to get to her. In my humble opinion, of course. She even reached out to Ignacio's father, Julian. She insisted that Julian would want to stay in contact with Christian, his illegitimate grandson. Her hateful comments about Heather were intensifying.
So her hatred came to a tipping point On January 23rd, 2007, someone wearing a Grim Reaper mask and a black robe approached Heather outside of her place of employment as she was leaving for the day and ended her life. A coworker of Heather's and witness to the crime heard the murderer say, quote, "You've ruined my life," end quote. And then 2 shots rang out. Heather lay there on the ground behind her place of employment, bleeding out, before she succumbed to her injuries about 30 minutes later at the age of 37, leaving behind her 9-year-old daughter.
Police were quick to respond to the scene after a call came in that a police officer's wife was shot. Coworkers and witnesses immediately implicated Shauna for the murder. Shauna had been sending Ignacio threatening messages like, "You broke my heart. You fucked me, so be prepared." She was sending Heather threatening voicemails that Heather didn't take seriously. I mean, who would? Like, it's 2007. I mean, you're sending a threatening voicemail on your BlackBerry. Like, I don't know.
I loved my
Whatever.
BlackBerry, by the way.
Yeah. I didn't
Oh, I
have one,
did.
but I had a Nokia because, Nokia
I
was
had
the
like
phone.
what were they called? The Sidekick? But it was
Oh,
like
yeah.
not the like full version. It was
It
like
was the tiny sidekick where you slid it up.
I don't even remember. I just know
Mm.
it just like wasn't the full one. And I want to say it like didn't have a camera or something.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
like, that's okay. I don't need a phone with a camera. And now, like, I still don't because, I mean, it's sort of embarrassing. But if you go through my phone, you'll find just like screenshots of memes and
Oh,
like maybe a few pictures of my dogs. But like, you would have no idea that I had like a life outside of memes and my dogs. I have kids. I promise. You wouldn't know though.
I mean, whatever.
It's fine, right?
It is fine. So shortly after that call went out, stating there had been a shooting at the bank, a follow-up call went out looking for Shauna. Ken, okay, so Ken was good before, and now Ken gets a little sketchy. Maybe we have to back off our alliance
Yeah,
for a
we have to
hot
like
second.
not. Yeah, we can't be pals with him right now. We're taking a break for a minute.
Yeah. So he heard the call over his police radio and raced to find her. He was the first to stop Shauna after the alleged shooting. He immediately went up to her window and began yelling, "Get out of the car." And what did you do?
So Ken was the one who arrested his own wife?
Well, not exactly. This is where it gets sketchy. He stopped her. But then he was like, continue on home. So he let her drive home. He was later charged with tampering with physical evidence. So after leaving Shauna, Ken returned to work, which, I mean, good for you. You stop your wife. You're like, "Hey, go home." She's like, "All right." Heather was killed with a 40 caliber Glock, a gun that Ken did own, but Shauna had access to. I'm pretty sure it was his duty weapon
I
or
thought it
one
was
of
his
them.
duty weapon,
I
but it
thought so
wasn't the
too.
weapon he had on him.
No, because I think he couldn't find it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think he couldn't find it, and he took his other duty weapon, but this one she that she was killed with was a gun similar or the same as the one that Ken had, allegedly. I mean, she was whatever.
Don't come for us.
So,
It's all
right,
alleged.
Shauna told Ken that she had sold the gun, but she told Michelle Moore, who we mentioned earlier, that she hadn't sold the gun. I mean, how do you do you sell the duty weapon? Was it his duty weapon? There's a whole lot of speculation with that, but I was almost positive it was his duty weapon.
Wouldn't Weld County own that? I don't know how it works in Weld County,
That's what
but
I thought.
typically,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, because like they take your gun and your badge when you leave or you're put on suspension or something because it's their gun. You're like
Right.
borrowing it.
Well, when my wife Candace worked for Larimer County, she had to buy her own duty weapon. So maybe he had to buy it. I don't know.
Oh, okay. So
But
she didn't sell the gun?
she didn't sell the gun.
Okay, but she just like used it in a really shittily planned murder Because she thought they, like,
Mhm,
couldn't
mhm.
trace it back to Ken?
Yeah, 'cause, forensics and everything. So, Ken believed that she was actually trying to set him up for the murder.
Why?
Well, with Ken and Heather both out of the way, there was nothing standing in Ignacio's way of being together. Which brings us to Shauna's arrest. When Shauna was arrested, she was wearing Ken's socks, baseball hat, and his dun, da, 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 underwear.
Ew! What?
Yeah, gross. She was wearing his underwear and no shoes, and there was a Grim Reaper mask that was found in Ken's truck that she was driving. A truck that Ken said she hated. So he thought it was weird that she was driving it around that day.
Okay, but, like, can we just go back to the underwear thing for a second? Because, like, what in the actual fuck?
Haha, yeah. So she said she was taking some sort of medication that made her poop her pants. So she wanted to draw herself a bath. Again, we're in the 1800s. I would like to draw a bath.
Right?
But when the tub was full, she decided she needed to go to the liquor store. I mean, that always happens to me. I'm always in the middle of getting ready to take a bath, and then I'm like, oh, liquor store. I need to go to the liquor store. So you know what? I'm gonna leave this full tub of, by the time I get back, not hot water, and then I'll get in this
Right!
tub.
Right, like,
No.
after I shit myself,
Bro.
of course.
Right.
Or shat myself
Right.
because I don't know what the
Right.
past tense would be.
It's
But, like,
shat,
what
so you're correct. But that's
ew,
why she just grabbed the closest clothes to her that weren't poop covered and put them on.
that's
So you're just
gross.
rummaging in a hamper and you put on your
Right.
not poop covered husband's clothes, who, by the way, is a large man.
Yeah, he's not small. I mean, she's not small either.
No, but he was
But, like,
very tall.
ew.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I
Yeah.
guess I have some questions, I guess.
Okay, go ahead.
So, 1, who lies about
Mhm.
pooping theirselves? Like, who does that? Why would you make that lie up? 2,
Right.
when she was found, was there fecal matter in Ken's underwear? And
I
then who has to do that DNA testing? Because, like, how embarrassing
mm.
would that be? Like, you pooped yourself and now you're wearing his underwear, but then they're, like, doing DNA testing. They're like, "Actually, these skid marks are totally Ken's. You put on someone else's skid marks."
His poopy underwear.
Like, ew.
I don't know. It's so
That's
weird. Like, I don't get it. I don't get why you ran a bath and then decided to go to the liquor store. I don't get why you put on your husband's underwear. Like, never in my life. Um,
right, like, is that normal? Is that a normal occurrence?
so
Do you guys just, like, share undies? Like, instead of, like, "Oh, I'm gonna buy girl undies and
no,
boy undies," they're like, "We're just gonna buy boy undies and I'm gonna wear boy undies." Like, what? But I promise all you guys, like, I am making a
yeah.
promise to everybody listening right now. I promise to you, I will never wear Chris's panties. Like, those are the one thing I won't share. So, I promise you,
um,
if I go
I
commit a
won't share
crime, I
that
will do it in
or
my own panties. Blech.
I won't share panties and I also won't share toothbrush. Like,
Ew, no.
I'm not putting yeah, yeah. So those are 2 things. 2 things we won't share.
I probably won't share your socks
So
either
I don't
because Chris has really sweaty
oh,
feet
yeah.
sometimes, like, "I love you, honey." But, like, really, I'd be like, "No, no.
Gross, right?
Gross."
Hmm. Right, right. So, I
Okay,
don't
sorry,
know if
go
there was
on.
poop in his I don't know if there was poop in his panties, but she was wearing them, and his shoes were actually found tossed out of the vehicle, like, a ways back.
So she
So,
was
she
wearing
was
his shoes
probably
too?
yeah, her DNA was found in his shoes, so yeah, she was. But when she was arrested, she wasn't wearing shoes, and I know that because I booked her in.
No fucking way.
Yeah, yeah, I
Was
sure
she
did.
nice?
Yeah, she was really nice. Like, I've never
Really?
booked anybody really rude except for one guy who had, like, an upside down cross tattooed on his forehead. He was
Ooh.
very mean to me. Yeah, but that's okay.
I always
I
thought
mean,
women were so mean.
I hated crying. I just can't. Like, crying up there. I just hand them a Kleenex and I'm like, "Are we done? Like, here you go. Move on."
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know that I ever handed anyone a Kleenex. I'm so
I did
sorry,
all the
everybody.
time.
I never thought about it. I was like, "All right, like, let's just
Uh,
get through this."
Whole Kleenex out handed to him. Okay. Just
Oh
dry
god,
your
that's so
eyes.
funny. I'm like, "Let me speak my terrible Spanish to you, and then you can go sit down. Just you guys don't wanna talk to me. I know you have other things you'd rather be doing than sitting here talking to Minnie Mouse, so hop along. I'm so sorry you're here." That's so crazy. I didn't
Yeah,
realize it was you
yeah.
who booked her in.
Yep, sure did. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So she was basically trying to set him up for the crime.
Pretty much, allegedly.
Of course, because this is all hypothetical. Don't come for us, guys.
Yeah. I mean, we're just telling a story about how it happened in 2007.
Right.
So, I circling back to taking a bath and then going to the liquor store, or drawing a bath and then going to the liquor store. It's so confusing. Um, I think she drew the bath and had it waiting for her so she could limit the amount of DNA that was transferred after the shooting. She shot Heather at close range, so I think she was planning on more blood splatter than there actually was.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Was
Mhm.
there like a lot of blood on her?
No, that's why she was fighting the charges so hard.
So then what happened at court?
The charges against Ken were dropped, and Michelle Moore, remember
Oh,
her?
yeah. What happened to her? She
So
was so
sure,
young. She was like 27.
yeah, she's a piece of work.
Oh,
Um,
no.
so Shauna accused Michelle of being Shauna's scorned lover after Michelle testified that she knew Shauna was going to kill Heather. And then Michelle admitted to telling Shauna that she needed to leave misleading evidence at the scene and how to avoid leaving her DNA at the scene. I mean, okay, so if you're going to commit a crime, first of all, there's a number of things you should do. Don't tell people because I'm sorry. People are going to rat you out every single time. If it comes down to you or
So
them, they will
true.
pick them every time. So
Right.
if
Like, I'm sorry. I don't have that kind of loyalty to anybody.
nope, nope,
Like, I have to think of their family.
right.
That's so sad. She has a
Yeah,
daughter. Like, I
yeah.
don't give a shit, like, how good of a friend you are to me, but, like, if you're gonna go plan somebody's murder, you're on your own, man, and if you tell me
Mhm.
about it, I'm gonna totally rat you out, so
Right.
snitches get stitches. It's me. I will have
Right.
stitches. You're
Right.
welcome. Don't
Yeah.
tell me your plans, anybody.
Right. That's how I feel. I'm not telling you my plans. If I murder someone, no one's gonna know. I
Yeah,
mean,
like,
other than the fact that I just mentioned it on this podcast.
hypothetically, if you
Allegedly.
were hypothetically going to murder
I have
somebody, you
no
wouldn't
dead bodies that anyone will find.
wood chippers.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. That's gross. But that's just crazy to me. So,
Mhm.
do you think that they were lovers?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Um, I think I know Shauna said that they were, but Michelle's always denied it. Always. Um, I think that was a news story, and I think Shauna went with it because how else do you explain why you have this close relationship with somebody, you know, that so you don't get in trouble. So you can blame it on her too, like because
Right, like, you
Shauna
don't wanna
didn't
go
take
down by
any
yourself.
right, she didn't take any responsibility for any of this. So Michelle did plead guilty to accessory to attempted first-degree murder, and she was sentenced to 9 years in prison. But she was she I think she only served 7 of that.
Okay.
Um, but she was actually arrested a few days before sentencing, for drunk driving.
So, I feel like when I worked there, which was, like, after this happened, because I started in 11 and this was in '07, um, but it was, like, pretty well known that she was a heavy drinker. Am I right in remembering that?
Yeah, she liked to party.
Okay.
She was young, so I mean, who doesn't? And she was a sheriff's deputy, not like that sheriff's deputy that was in Tennessee that was running trains with her fellow
Oh my
coworkers.
god, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Okay, so Candace has been
yeah,
sending me, like, the funniest memes about that, and I laugh every time.
yeah. It's a good time. Like that lady, she actually told me about it, and she's like, look up like female cop does gangbang, which by the way, do not look that up. That results that results in not what you are looking for.
Oh my god. I mean,
Just
unless
so
that's what
you
you're looking
know.
for, but, like,
Yeah, yeah, if that's what you're
ugh.
looking for, more power to you, but do that incognito.
So, I, like, totally do not agree with her actions, but I do think it's unfair that, like, she is being ostracized and, like I mean, the whole world knows that she's a whore,
Yeah,
or at
yeah,
least her proclivity. Um, but, like, those other officers are just as guilty.
yeah, they're probably worse because they took advantage of her. They had all worked there for years before she started. She's
Yes.
only been there not even 2 years yet.
Right. But
Mhm.
we don't hear I mean, like, I'm not getting memes about that.
No.
They're not making memes about these other guys, it's all the girl, and it's just so
Yep.
unfair. I
Yeah.
don't think what she did was right, don't get me wrong.
No.
But girl power, guys, come on.
Yeah.
What the
Yeah.
hell? Men, take some accountability for being shitty men sometimes, okay?
Right. And also, women, you don't have to sleep your way to the top. There's no need for that. Like,
Don't sleep your way to the top.
I get that sometimes men are sucky and sometimes women don't get recognized for the types of jobs that we do that are really fucking hard and that women aren't promoted as much as men are, but please, please, it just degrades the whole thing if you're sleeping your way to some other job. Like, it's not, I mean, it's just not okay. Don't date your boss.
No. You don't what is it? You don't eat where you shit or something like that? There's,
Shit
like,
where
a
you eat. Yeah.
there, yes. And I mean,
Yep.
really, if you're that lonely, keep a box of friends in your car.
Right.
Shout out to you, Lois. We love you.
S So, on March 3rd, 2008, after day 1 of deliberation, Shauna Nelson was found guilty of murder in the first degree and was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. When the verdict was read, Shauna sat stone cold sober, never flinching and emotionless. Shauna, now 51 years old, will live and die at the Denver Women's Correctional Facility. Ken Nelson filed for divorce and left the sheriff's office. He is currently raising the couple's 3 children, which includes the child Shauna had with Ignacio. Michelle Moore has been released from prison and is no longer working in law enforcement either. Well, she can. She has a felony.
Right. Well,
And,
I mean
and allegedly, she's married now. Ignacio resigned from the Greeley Police Department and moved out of state. In an interview with NBC, he said, I loathe myself. And I have to hide it so my kid doesn't see how bad I loathe myself. Because a beautiful woman's dead for me having an affair, the chain of events that I had no way of foreseeing. But ultimately, if I had never had an affair, Heather would still be alive. It's on me. On March 13th, 2015, at the age of 17, Victoria Garraus was killed in an automobile accident in Michigan. She is buried next to her mother, and Ignacio now lives in Florida. A little side note, Victoria actually moved when they moved, they all moved to Florida, but she moved to Michigan with either a friend or a cousin of hers, and he still lived in Florida. So she lived in Michigan with that family and not with Ignacio.
oh my gosh.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, how sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I do I mean, I do kinda feel bad for him, for Ignacio. Um, I can't imagine losing a spouse and a child.
I mean, he still has a child, so
That's true. Well, I mean, he doesn't though, he gave up rights.
but,
It was,
I
like, 2
mean,
days after he told Shauna, like, "Hey, girlfriend, we're done with this." He was like, "You know what? I don't wanna be your kid's dad anymore."
but but the kid's an adult now, so, I
Ah.
mean, he technically, the kid could go find him and, you know.
Oh, I'm sure he knows about him.
Right, right,
There's no way that you could grow up anywhere
right,
near this case and not know that your dad isn't your dad.
right, right,
Because your real dad no offense, Ignacio, but your real dad is kind of a piece of garbage and didn't want you.
right, right.
And, like, you had to have
Yeah.
known like, I don't know, I guess I've never been in this situation,
Well,
but
also, like, all the signs were there, like, how do you ignore the signs of a crazy person? Like, like, she calls and texted you, 65 or 165 times a day, and you didn't think that something was gonna happen to your wife, why didn't you report her as crazy before? Like,
Right.
you can go in and say, "Hey, this person won't leave me alone." Like, it's perfectly fine.
Right. And, like, all because you didn't wanna have a conversation with your wife and say, like, "Hey, I'm worried about you. I think that you're going through something and you need help," or, "We're going through something, let's go to therapy."
Right. Shout
You
out to
chose not
therapy.
to. For sure.
Right. Shout out to therapy.
For sure. I think that mental health is it's just it's a hot topic right now because,
Right.
um, that mother killed her 3 kids
Mhm.
after she was suffering from postpartum psychosis, and, I mean, it's what she did was wrong.
Right.
Her husband leaving her alone with the kids was wrong, but also at the same time, it's gotta be hard to have a wife who is now a child and you have
Right.
3 children, and a baby
Right.
on top of that, and then now you have this infant of a wife that you have to take care of.
Right.
It's such a sad case.
Yeah.
But long story short was mental health is really important, and
It is.
not everybody us and I guess in law enforcement, like, you're kind of trained to be aware of that and
Right.
to kind of notice that, and you didn't. You kind of let your wife flounder, and
Well,
that's just not fair.
and I think the other part is now they're trying to get mental health into law enforcement, which is really important. I think that first responders and doctors and nurses and all of those, people on the front line really need someone to talk to. Um,
Absolutely.
I, I know that you see some shit, like, and you need someone who has an unbiased opinion to talk to because, quite honestly, that seeing all that stuff jacks with your brain. Like, you cannot go every day and just stuff your dead bodies in a box or your child murders in a box or your domestic violence cases in a box. Like, you have
Right.
to be able to have someone to talk to, and I think it's very important, and I think the stigma about first responders getting mental health needs to go away. I think that everybody deserves somebody to talk to, and I don't think it matters what occupation you're in.
Oh, I
I
agree.
I think that stigma needs to go away. I think first responders are the most important people, and I think they deserve somebody to talk to, and I think the stigma that surrounds that surrounds people saying, "Hey, I talked to a therapist," I think that needs to go away, and I think the only way to do that is to talk about mental health more and what to do about it.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that no matter what career choice or career path you take, it is never normal to see a dead body or to have those conversations with people about, what they did to somebody or what they've done to a child or what they want to do to somebody. It's not normal for a person to have to hear that. And I just have to say, I hope I hope she doesn't mind me talking about it, but one of my best friends, she actually was like a CSI and recently left because she was having such a hard time bringing it home. And like I just couldn't imagine. I
Mhm.
oof.
Yeah.
She has a little one, and to see that, like, day in and day out, I just yuck.
It's
I'm
too
just
much, like,
it's too much, and I'm proud of her for seeing that and for,
for not
you know,
stuffing
s
it away in a box.
yeah, for stepping
Mhm.
away and,
Mhm.
knowing, like, "Okay, this isn't
This isn't okay.
it's not good for me, it's not good for my family." And,
Mhm.
I mean, she went to college for this, and I'm sure she loved that job, and I'm sure she'll go back eventually.
Mhm.
But I think, how else where do people go to talk about that stuff? And especially, like, if you are I don't wanna say one of the good old boys, but, like, if you were in law
Mhm.
enforcement before, like, 2010,
Mhm.
like, it is totally stigmatized to go to
Correct.
any kind of therapy. Like,
Mhm.
that's what's expected of you. You're expected to see this stuff and be okay with it and
Right.
be able to process it on your own. And, I mean, I don't
Just an
know.
FYI, coming from a a family whose parents were a nurse and in law enforcement, I can guarantee you that them not going to therapy has affected me in my life. Um,
Oh, absolutely.
I actually, I'm gonna throw it out there. I went to therapy. It's great. It's so nice to talk to somebody who has no investment in your life. They just listen to you. They offer you sound advice. Um, it it was a really positive experience in my life, and I recommend that anyone goes and that you do take it, like, even if you only go through your work, like if you have an EAP or you have like your allotted like
7
therapy
sessions or
sessions.
whatever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, take advantage of that. It's so helpful even if you only go for 7 sessions. You can go once a month for 7 months and just talk to someone who has no investment in your life other than listening to you and making sure that you're heard.
Yes. Yes, and sometimes it's nice to have somebody hold that mirror up to you
Mhm.
and say,
You could
either
do
way,
better.
like, "You could do better," or
Mhm.
I'm really good at, like, blaming myself.
Right.
I will take the burden on. I'm sort of like a uh, um, God, what is the word I'm looking for here?
I don't know. I can't see your face.
Oh my gosh, that's so annoying to me.
But I could see that. And
Yeah,
I'm
like, I take a lot of the blame, and I'm like, "Alright, well, this happened because I did this," or, I will take on the problem, and I will then, like, figure out, "Oh, I'll process it later," and,
right.
it is sometimes it's nice to have somebody just hold that mirror up and say, like, "Hey,
Right.
you don't have to
You're
always
not
be so
responsible
strong."
for this. Yep.
Yep. You don't have to be so tough. You're allowed to, because I'm not a crier,
Right.
and so that was really nice. It was something. Good God,
Yes.
2020 was, like, the worst year of my life, and
Yeah.
honestly, therapy really
Yep.
saved me.
Yep, that's me, 2021. I did therapy. Um, it was great, and that's how I feel too. Like, it made me realize that um, other people's problems are not my problems. Like,
Yep,
I can't fix everyone. I can only fix me, and I can only change me. Like,
yep.
anyone else is responsible for them. I'm not responsible for everybody. So, big shout out to therapy. I
Yeah,
think
get
everyone
it,
should try
therapy.
it. And you don't have to stick with a one therapist. If you don't like them, find somebody else.
Yes,
You have to
absolutely.
find the therapist that fits with you. So, um, if you're looking for a good therapist, I'm gonna shout out to Iomi in Fort Collins. They have a lot of really amazing therapists on there, and a lot of places that you work for will cover their a lot of places use them as their EAP. So shout out to them. Um, but again, go to therapy.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Nope, nothing wrong with it.
Whether you're a boy or a girl.
Correct.
I feel like just because we're girls doesn't mean that, like, "Oh, we had to go deal with our emotions." Like,
Right.
boys, you need it just
More
as
than
bad, if
girls.
not worse.
Right. Correct. Because the stigma around being the man, like,
Yep.
it's okay to be sensitive, like, there's nothing wrong with being sensitive, there's nothing wrong with being a caring human, and there's nothing wrong with having feelings, and
Yes,
it's okay to talk about your feelings, and it's okay to go to therapy, so go to
absolutely.
therapy, people.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll get off
Alright,
our
well,
soapbox.
yeah, I was just gonna say, let's crawl down from our soapbox. We'll park that for a minute. I'm not making any guarantees that that thing's away forever, because I'm sure next episode it'll be out. But as of now, crime fans, that's all we have for you. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. If you have any case requests or suggestions, please send them our way. If you haven't already, please subscribe so you can be notified every time we upload. If you enjoy listening to us weekly, please leave us a review on Apple Podcast. Maybe it would be kind of fun if we, like, picked one review every week and gave that listener a shout out. What do you think?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
I
that'd be
like
fun,
that.
right? I
Yeah.
know.
Hey, and also, give me a shout out on Facebook. How you liking the new like posts and the the fun facts? Any fun facts you want to know
Yeah.
about? Like I can throw those on there. It's been really fun for me to I really enjoyed the gallon of blood one. I think that's very important so you know how much you got to clean up in case you do a murder.
Right.
Mhm.
I know.
Mhm.
I know, thanks for doing that because
You're
seriously, like,
welcome.
I hate social media, I'm the worst at it. But yeah, no, I love it. So thank you so much for doing that
You're
because
welcome.
I think that's really fun. But yeah, we'll pick a review every week and we'll give them a shout out. So new episodes are released every Friday at 10:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Please follow us on Instagram at Colorado Crime Pod and on Facebook at Colorado Crime Podcast for information on next week's episode as well as other true crime happenings. We hope you have a beautiful day wherever you are. And as always, stay safe.
In the words of Neil Young, it's better to burn out than fade away. Brenda told me, "Your taglines are the best." Like,
Good.
she's like, "I wait every week to see what you're gonna say at the end."